Hello and welcome to my channel. In this video we will be looking at the behaviorist treatments of phobias, which you need to know for AQA A-level psychology in the subtopic of psychopathology. I hope you enjoy this video and find it helpful. Let's get started. Behaviorist treatments are based on the principle of classical and operant conditioning and the idea that behaviors that are learnt can be unlearnt. There are two types of behaviorist explanations: systematic desensitization and flooding. Systematic desensitization. Systematic desensitization is a type of behavioral therapy based on the principle of classical conditioning. Using counter-conditioning, the process by which a new conditioned association response is created and learnt to a stimulus that already has a maladaptive conditioned response, and the idea that two opposite emotions cannot coexist, reciprocal inhibition. This therapy aims to gradually remove the fear response of a phobia and substitute and elicit an antagonistic relaxation response to the conditional stimulus gradually. This will lead to the extinction of the fear response. There are phases to this treatment. First, the patient will be taught relaxation, such as mediation, breathing techniques, where the patient will focus on their breathing and taking slower, deeper breaths, as anxiety often results in faster, shallow breathing. Mental imaging techniques, where a patient may use here and now skills which involves focusing on a particular object or visualizing a relaxing and peace scene, and progressive muscle detensioning techniques, where a patient will strain and relax their muscle groups gently. The patient will then create a fear hierarchy with their therapist, which is a list of situations related to the phobic stimulus, from least to most fear-provoking and anxiety-inducing stimuli. For example, say hear the word sound, look at a picture, hold a picture, look through a window, walk past, hold. This will provide a structure for the therapy. The patient will work their way up the fear hierarchy, taking a step approach and being gradually exposed at each stage, starting with their least fear-provoking and anxiety-inducing stimuli. They will practice relaxation techniques until the stimuli no longer produces a fear response, when at this point, they will move on to the next stage in the hierarchy. If the client later produces a fear response, they can return to an earlier stage and regain their relaxed state. Eventually, this will lead to the extinction of the phobia when the most fear-provoking and anxiety-inducing stimuli is responded to with relaxation. The number of sessions required depends on the severity of the phobia. Usually, 4 to 6 sessions, up to 12 for a severe phobia. Exposure can be done in two ways: in vitro, where the client imagines exposure to the phobic stimulus, and in vivo, where the client is actually exposed to the phobic stimulus. Wolpe, 1964, successfully used the method to treat an 18-year-old male with a severe hand-washing compulsion. The disorder involved a fear of contaminating others with urine. After urinating, the patient felt compelled to spend 45 minutes cleaning his genitalia, 2 hours washing his hands, and 4 hours showering. Treatment involved placing the young man in a state of relaxation and then asking him to imagine low-anxiety scenes, such as an unknown man touching a trough of water containing 1 drop of urine. As the patient's anxiety gradually dissipated, Wolpe gradually increased the imaginary concentration of urine. In addition, a real bottle of urine was presented at a distance and moved closer to the patient in gradual steps. Finally, Wolpe could apply drops of diluted urine to the back of the patient's hand without evoking anxiety. A follow-up 4 years later revealed complete remission of the compulsive behaviors. A strength of systematic desensitization as a treatment for phobias is that there are several pieces of empirical research to support the long-term effectiveness of the treatment. Lang et al., 1963, used systematic desensitization with a group of college students who were all suffering from snake phobia. They underwent 11 sessions to work through a hierarchy. Hypnosis was used to assist in the maintenance of relaxation. The students' fear rating fell, and improvements were still evident 6 months later. McGrath et al., 1990, found that 75% of patients with phobias responded positively to systematic desensitization and exposure to the feared stimulus, vivo techniques. Kapafans et al., 1998, recruited 41 aerophobia sufferers for a media campaign in Spain and treated 20 of them with systematic desensitization, and had 21 members of a control group. The treatment group was given 2 by 1 hour sessions of in vivo and in vitro techniques a week over a 12 to 15 week period. During a flight simulation, self-reports and physiological measures of anxiety were used. The results showed all but 2 of those who had systematic desensitization treatment reported lower levels of fear and were seen to have less anxiety, compared to 1 member of the control group, who showed signs of improvement. Rothbaum et al., 2000, used systematic desensitization with participants who were afraid of flying. Following treatment, 93% agreed to take a trial flight. It was found that anxiety levels were lower than those of a control group who had not received systematic desensitization, and this improvement was maintained when they were followed up 6 months later. Gilroy et al., 2002, examined 42 patients with arachnophobia, fear of spiders, who were assessed using a variety of measures such as spider questionnaires and behavioral responses to spiders. Each patient was treated using 3 45-minute systematic desensitization sessions. A control group was treated by relaxation without exposure. When examined 3 months and 33 months later, the systematic desensitization group were less fearful than a control group, who were only taught relaxation techniques. This is a strength because it suggests that there is a solid foundation of evidence validating theories and concepts in psychology. Empirical research allows for systematic observation and measurement of behaviors, emotions, and cognitive processes, leading to more reliable and generalizable findings. A strength of systematic desensitization as a treatment for phobias is that there is research to support the effectiveness of vivo techniques. Menzies and Clark, 1993, conducted a comparison study investigating the vivo and vitro exposure in the treatment of childhood water phobias. 48 water-phobic children between the ages of 3 and 8 years old were randomly assigned to one of 4 groups. 1. In vivo exposure plus vitro exposure, IVVE. 2. Vitro exposure, VE. 3. In vivo exposure, IVE. And 4. Assessment-only control. All the children received 3 individually administered treatment sessions. It was found that when compared to the control group, those in the IVE group made significant improvements when it came to overcoming their phobias, and this generalized to other situations involving water, and maintained over a period of 3 months, compared it the VE condition, which did not improve significantly. This is a strength because it suggests that in vivo exposure can lead to more effective and lasting results in overcoming phobias, as demonstrated by the significant improvements seen in the IVE group. A strength of systematic desensitization as a treatment for phobias is that there is case study research to support the effectiveness of the treatment. Jones, 1924, studied a 2-year-old boy called Peter, who had a phobia of white rats and similar stimuli. Jones was able to remove Peter's phobia over several sessions with him by progressively increasing his exposure to a white rabbit. This is a strength because it suggests that systematic desensitization can be an effective therapeutic approach to treating phobias, as evidenced by empirical case studies like Jones's work with Peter. A strength of systematic desensitization as a treatment of phobias is that it is generally considered more ethical than some alternative treatments, particularly those that involve more invasive or intense methods. Patients prefer this treatment, shown by the low refusal and attrition rates, which lead to higher completion rates. This works suitably for a wider range of clients. Systematic desensitization also prioritizes the well-being of the patient by allowing them to progress at their own pace. This ethical consideration is crucial, as it respects the individual's emotional state and personal boundaries. Additionally, the use of relaxation techniques during exposure helps to create a sense of safety and control for the patient, further enhancing the ethical nature of this treatment. This is a strength because it suggests that systematic desensitization is a patient-centered approach that not only respects individual boundaries but also fosters a supportive therapeutic environment. A limitation of systematic desensitization as a treatment for phobias is that it is time-consuming and expensive. Systematic desensitization is a slow process, and patients need to attend numerous appointments to be trained in relaxation techniques, and gradual exposure can take many sessions. The patient will also need to build a trusting relationship with their therapist, which in itself is difficult and can take time. Also, the strategy is dependent on the skill set of the therapist themselves, which can affect how long this treatment takes or if it works at all. This is a limitation because it suggests that the effectiveness of systematic desensitization may be hindered by the time and financial commitment required from patients. A limitation of systematic desensitization as a treatment for phobias is that the progress achieved during therapy may not always generalize to real-world situations. When individuals are faced with their phobia outside the therapeutic environment, they may struggle to apply the coping mechanisms they learnt during therapy. This is particularly evident when individuals with phobias are exposed to their feared stimuli outside the clinical setting, where they may not have the therapist's support or guidance. In therapy, clients gradually confront their fears in a safe space, often using relaxation techniques to manage their anxiety. However, once they leave the therapy room, the context changes significantly. The presence of real-life stressors, unexpected triggers, or the absence of coping mechanisms learned during therapy can lead to a resurgence of anxiety. The absence of the therapist's support can lead to increased anxiety and a sense of being overwhelmed, making it difficult for the individual to confront their fear effectively. For instance, someone who has worked through their fear of public speaking in a safe, supportive environment might find it challenging to replicate that success in a real-life scenario, such as giving a presentation in front of an audience. This is a limitation because it suggests that the effectiveness of systematic desensitization may be compromised in real-life situations, where individuals encounter their phobias without the structured support of a therapist. The skills and coping mechanisms learnt in therapy may not translate effectively to unpredictable environments, leading to heightened anxiety and difficulty in managing their fears. A limitation of systematic desensitization as a treatment for phobias is that may not be appropriate for more generalized free-floating phobias. Social phobias, which do not involve an obvious target behavior, cannot devise a hierarchy, and therefore very little importance is shown through systematic desensitization. This could suggest that there are other causes for phobias other than classical conditioning. For example, if a fear of public speaking originates with poor social skills, then phobic reduction is more likely to occur in a treatment that includes learning effective social skills than systematic desensitization alone. This is a limitation because it suggests that systematic desensitization may not be effective for all types of phobias, particularly those that are more generalized and lack a specific target. Flooding. Flooding, also known as implosion therapy, is based on the idea that anxiety cannot be maintained indefinitely and eventually subsides. Flooding aims to expose the sufferer to the phobic object or situation for an extended period of time in a safe and controlled environment. A person is bombarded with fear by being immediately exposed directly to their most fear-provoking and anxiety-inducing stimuli, which causes a state of extreme anxiety and panic. However, eventually, exhaustion of the phobic response sets in, and the anxiety level begins to go down. This prevents avoidance and the reinforcement of a phobia through escape or avoidance behaviors, which allows patients to understand that the phobic stimulus is harmless. The exposure and bombardment will continue until anxiety subsides and an extinction of fear response occurs. The patient will also taught and encouraged to use relaxation techniques prior to the exposure of the phobic stimuli, which continues until the patient is able to fully relax. Prolonged intense exposure eventually creates a new association between the feared object and something positive, e.g. a sense of calm and lack of anxiety. A flooding session can last for 2 or 3 hours. A strength of flooding as a treatment of phobias is that it is time and cost effective. Flooding typically requires 1 session, and therefore patients can experience quicker relief from their phobias. Additionally, the reduced number of therapy sessions can lower the overall treatment cost, making it more accessible for individuals to seek help. The immediate confrontation with the fear can also lead to a significant reduction in anxiety levels, allowing individuals to regain control over their lives more swiftly. Ugrin, 2011, has also suggested that flooding is comparable to other treatments, including systematic desensitization and cognition therapies. This is a strength because it suggests that flooding can provide effective and efficient treatment for phobias, allowing individuals to confront their fears directly and potentially experience significant relief in a shorter time frame. However, a limitation of flooding as a treatment of phobias is that time and money can be wasted when patients refuse to finish flooding due to the high trauma. Flooding involves prolonged exposure to the feared stimulus, which can be an overwhelming and distressing experience for many individuals. If a patient finds the process too traumatic, they may withdraw from therapy before achieving any meaningful progress, leading to frustration for both the therapist and the patient. This refusal to continue can result in wasted sessions and associated costs, as the patient may not only fail to confront their phobia but also require additional therapy to address the emotional fallout from the flooding experience. Moreover, the initial investment in therapy may yield no results, leaving patients feeling disheartened and potentially worsening their anxiety or fear. Additionally, the high trauma associated with flooding can lead to avoidance behaviors, where patients may become increasingly resistant to facing their fears, thus prolonging their suffering and hindering their recovery. This is a limitation because it suggests that flooding may not be suitable for everyone, particularly those who are more sensitive to trauma or have a history of severe anxiety. A strength of flooding as a treatment of phobias is that there is research to support the effectiveness of flooding. Wolpe, 1960, used flooding to treat an adolescent girl with a phobia and fear of cars. The girl was forced into the back of a car and drove around continuously for 4 hours. Her fear reached hysterical heights but then receded and, by the end of the journey, had completely disappeared. It was concluded that phobias are so persistent because the object is avoided in real life and is therefore not extinguished by the discovery that it is harmless. This is a strength because it suggests that flooding can lead to significant and rapid changes in a person's emotional response to their phobia. A limitation of flooding as a treatment of phobias is that there is a high risk of symptom substitution. Symptom substitution may occur when the phobia is replaced with another. For example, if someone has a fear of flying and undergoes flooding therapy without addressing the underlying issues, they might find that their fear of flying diminishes but they then develop a fear of elevators. This happens because the emotional response and avoidance behavior are not fully resolved. Instead, they shift to another area. Additionally, symptom substitution can lead to frustration and further anxiety for the individual, as they may feel trapped in a cycle of developing new fears. This is a limitation because it suggests that flooding therapy may not effectively resolve the core issues related to a phobia, leading to the development of new fears instead. A limitation of flooding as a treatment for phobias is that it can be considered unethical. Flooding does not protect patients from psychological and physical harm. Patients are deliberately exposed to their fear, which causes extreme stress and anxiety with no guarantee that they can cope with the situation or that they will be treated. They may go on to have nightmares or even make their phobia worse to a point that their life becomes dysfunctional. It can also be dangerous and may not be an appropriate treatment for every phobia and certain categories of people, e.g. children and those with mental illnesses. It should be used with caution as some people can actually increase their fear after therapy, and it is not possible to predict when this will occur. Wolpe, 1969, reported the case of a client whose anxiety intensified to such a degree that flooding therapy resulted in her being hospitalized. Therefore, some patients will not be able to tolerate the high levels of anxiety induced by the therapy and are at a high risk of exiting the therapy before they are calm and relaxed. This is a limitation because it suggests that flooding may not only be ineffective for some individuals but could also exacerbate their fears and lead to negative psychological outcomes. Thank you for watching. If you have enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe for more content like this. Bye.